at the time the meeting started and noted that Councilmember Durham is on vacation and not with us tonight. So at this time, we'll bring the City Council meeting of August 17th back to order. The agenda says roll call, which we could have again, but let's move right into the invocation. Is Darren Hunt here? Would you please rise, please?
Let us pray. Gracious, merciful, and just God, we thank you for life today, and with life today, the opportunity to bless others in this life. I thank you for our mayor and these councilmen and women and all who have gathered in this chamber to conduct the business of governing this great city. I ask you to bless this city, those who govern it, those who watch and protect it, and those who live and work in it. I ask you to give wisdom to our council and city staff as they lead and serve to the best of their ability. Assist them in all the tasks and decisions that are before them tonight and in the coming weeks. In our Lord's name, amen.
Please say with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. The next item on our agenda tonight is a presentation. Is there a spokesperson or someone from the team leader that would like to introduce your group and your presentation? Please come up.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. Nice to see a few familiar faces and just a lot of the city council members that I'm sure I'll see being more of. I'd like to invite up a couple of core members to start. We've got Chris, who has been in the Corps for about a month now. He's our go-to guy for some of the taller jobs. And we got Tim, who has been delegated as our crew leader because we do have multiple jobs going on at certain times. Well, the CAC is a program that has been in the process for about almost a year now, so we're well on the way, and it's been going pretty good. You know, every day I wake up, I get a good breakfast, I make my lunch, I shower up, I consider what I need to accomplish for the day. I drive to work, going into the office, you know, there's a couple ladies in there that I know I need to respect like they were my mom or my grandma. I go to work, I drive a van, I take some core members around to different jobs. We take care of business. We have an hour lunch. At the end of the day, we go home. And I feel satisfied. One, because, well, maybe it's because it's a day closer to the weekend, but because we accomplished something. We got something done. We're building responsibility, and we're building rapport. And, you know, every time I go to the Corps, every morning I go to the Corps, you know, sometimes it's not always easy to get up, but I get into that office with these guys, with everybody sitting over here, and it makes me remember who I am. Because these guys aren't going to let me slip for a minute. But I guess what I'd really like to get into is just what we're trying to build here, you know. As I go through my day, and as I was thinking about what to say here, I'm thinking there's 15 to 20 core members that are doing the same exact thing as me every single morning of the week, 5 days a week, I should say, 40 hours a week. And these core members are from 17 to 20-year-old, you know, young adults. Many of them, this is their first job. So what are we doing in the CAC? We're building a community, you know. We're building people. We're building work ethic. And we're making a difference for everybody, I think, everybody here. You know, it's a lot of little things. We pull out one stump in a half a day. You know, I don't know if anybody's ever pulled a stump out of the ground, but we pulled 80-pound stumps out of the ground you know. And that's just one little stump, and nobody's going to notice that it's gone. But what you are going to notice is in 5 years, that flower bed that we were working on is not just an ugly stump anymore. Now there's flowers there, and there's life. So this has really been a learning experience for us. We do more than working. Education is really what we're focused on. There's a few things that our case manager really focuses on, and education is a big one. We've just started the new school year. We had some core members going to school throughout the summer, going for their GED. You know, we're building our resumes at the same time. We've come up with ideas to build a resume with pictures and references. It's on the way. We're in the process. This morning we went out with Joe Bailey, with the police force, and did some graffiti abatement. You know, we're on main streets. We're on A Street, taking graffiti off the fence. You know, little things that maybe people don't see that are not there anymore, but they're an eyesore for people that are there. There's a big community here that has been supporting us. We wouldn't be here without a lot of people to thank. And I've been thinking this last week, who am I to thank? But, you know, this is a big community, and there's a lot of players that have had our back. So I'd like to thank everybody for that right off the back. What else is with the CCC? Well, what's your favorite? Well, let's talk about trail building. We also do trail building, you know. One big thing about the CAC is teamwork. In any job, you need to be able to work with your crew members or your coworkers. And I think that is a big challenge for some people, and we're exposing all these little problems one at a time. Like, you know, we're trying to come up with a rule book. We're trying to come up with a way to say, this is the line to draw. Well, that's a good idea, but we all know what's right. We all know what we should and shouldn't be doing. And my job is to make sure that we're all on the same track. Monica's job, Miss Diaz, who is far none a good teammate in our crew, our case manager, the lady that gets everybody the job and takes care of all their problems. She's right there the whole time. I just want to say thank you to her most of all, and I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to her. We have a PowerPoint presentation that I would like to go through, just to give you guys an idea and get some visuals about, thank you, sir, what we got going out in the field. All right, so we are the Santa Barbara County Youth Corps under the CAC, Community Action Commission. All right. We're over on C Street. Oh, wow. A little action there. We're over on C Street 2 weeks ago, and they said there was a banana tree that we needed to take out. I'm thinking a banana tree. Well, we show up, and there's this bird of paradise, a bush. Well, this thing was 30 feet tall, 10 feet above the second story. And it was growing into the building, so we took it out. And it took a day and a half, but this is before we actually took it out. Now there's a good space right there where it used to be. So yeah, some of the priorities, the Youth Corps getting a job. We want all of the youth to be able to take what they've learned. You know, this is an intermediate job right here. This is taking the youth, giving them the skills to get into a career or a job that's going to sustain, that's going to hold them. Of course, schooling, like I said, is very important. Independent living, priority. I know for some people as they get older, you know, we've got some guys that are 20 years old. They're looking to move out. Everybody needs a driver's license. These are some of the priorities that Ms. Diaz has been focusing on and that we've been accomplishing. Work experience is one of our everyday. And obtaining financial skills. What do you do with money when you have it? And of course, leadership skills. And I put more than just Tim in charge of the crew at times. You know, everybody has their attributes. And being part of a team is exposing those attributes and taking advantage of them. So, even though someone might not be able to lift as much as a guy named Bill that we have on the team, or Chris right here, well, maybe their computer skills are superior. There's always an attribute that you can find in everybody. We've got quite a few people participating. There is a Santa Maria crew as well as a Santa Barbara crew. 14 females. You know, this makes my job a lot easier, having the ladies present at the job site. My mom taught me a lot of respect for ladies, and it's very easy for me to pick out any moment that isn't going to be right on the job site, and you know, that's a big infraction, and these guys know how to act in front of ladies. And the ladies, well, they're probably my best workers, actually. No offense, fellas. But they've got good focus, and they finish the task at hand, so I'm very proud of them as well. Let's see here. What do we got going? All right, here's some action pictures. There's a couple of them, the Palacios sisters up on the left. This is H and Ocean. We've been managing that spot. To the right, we combined a couple crews. We had Santa Maria and Santa Barbara helping us out just to get H and Ocean kind of up to par. Now it's nearly a maintaining that spot. It's been going real well. It's been looking all right. There's Captain Don Deming giving us some information about graffiti abatement, and that's our youth corps office, also up on the left. We've done work for the fire department on the right. They have a lot over there that we've taken care of. We also painted their warehouse. Here's another one of our bigger jobs, or I should say projects, that we've been focusing on for the last couple of months. Mark's house on N Street needs a lot of work. Basically, we're renovating that place. And these guys have been doing a real good job. Anthony over here has been managing many of the jobs. Really been doing a lot of work over there. The Bridge House as well. They're associated. The Bridge House out on Swaney. Thank you, Tim. Swaney. Is that right? Swaney. You know, that was a good job too. A lot of scraping. A lot of it's manual labor, but many times there's problem solving involved too, which is, I think, a lot of the funner jobs when we actually got to use our brains. You know, it's important that we keep that in there. This is some of the trail building. There's Bill on the right side that I was talking about. He's a key member of our crew. And then we're working out in the Santa Barbara mountains doing this. And it's a labor-intensive job, but that's not why we're out there. I think that we're out there to build a team. When you're sweating with somebody for 4 hours and you have a finished product at the end of the day, you know, the accomplishment there and the team building is irreplaceable. Oh yes, we went up to the Santa Maria airport and helped serve some Marines that were heading out to war within the month, or that had just come back from war. And it was a really good experience, I think, for everybody, just to get that encounter with the military. We've got a couple of guys that are actually looking into the military as a job too. I know Lorenzo, one of the fellas who shows up to work every day on time, does not complain, gets the job done, is looking to the military. I think he's got what it takes. We also do some internships. These ladies have worked in the office. And Rosita, even though she was a great worker on the crew on the upper left, I think she's been doing just as good of a job in the office, and she looks happy there. So I'm happy for her and that she's getting that experience. We've also come up with a motto. Is that what this is? The motto. I know there's a couple of stipulations. This mission statement. Thank you, Joyce. The CAC's Youth Corps program inspires young men and women to take ownership of their futures through positive life choices. The Youth Corps supports youth in developing personal accountability, self-respect, and a quality work ethic through community service, work experience, education, and life skill training. So that kind of sums up all that I've been speaking of. I want everybody to know that this is a volunteer program. They have come and they have applied for this job, and not everybody gets a job. These youth may have run into a speed bump here or there in the past, but who hasn't? Maybe some people just get busted for it and need to work a little bit harder to get back up to par. And there's just a few contacts that we can get for you. If you have questions, if you're looking for a job to be done, we do painting, we do landscaping. I have been a general contractor. You know, give Sky Almeng a call. Give me a call, or Monica Diaz. And we can come out to your place and for no cost, you know, we will take care of the community. We are looking for sustainable jobs, though, at the same time. We need to understand that this is a program that has been funded. That means the funds will not last forever. So I want everybody to recognize that we need your support. And I'm really very happy to have the support that we have had so far. It's been amazing. Tim Harrington has by far been an arm for us. He's been there. He's helping us currently. Another aspect of our everyday, or I say through the week, we try to touch on some business, you know. Getting a job is one thing, but who's to say that we can't start our own business? Who's to say that Kyle Kolish, another crew member, can't start his own business welding in Lompoc? So that's another aspect. We have a business plan, and I hope to bring that to you guys' attention sooner or later. When we're ready, we will let you know. CACSB.com is where you can apply for a job to be done at your place, not apply to work in the Youth Corps. But there's a program request button that you can go down to. It's very simple. The request will go to Sky, and Sky will send me the request. We'll come out. We'll take a look at your job and decide if it's something that we can do. We will come up with a plan from there. And there we are, the Santa Barbara Youth Corps. And I'd like to thank everybody once again. Any questions? We got a couple Corps members here. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the council?
Did I cover it all? Made these guys' job pretty easy. But thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. So there are two components to this. One, you can apply for getting a job done, and the other one is to have the youth come and work. To be specific, what kind of application process does a youth go through, and what are the requirements?
There are a few requirements. It's not really my area of expertise. It's more Ms. Diaz, who has got those specifics. If she'd like to share them, that'd be great.
The youth that I work with are between ages of 14 and 21. Other requirement is they have to be out of school, either a high school dropout or have graduated and are just not continuing their education. I also work with youth that are on independent program, which they only go to school 1 day or 1 hour or 2 a week. And they have to be low income. There are some requirements for those youth and documentation and state applications that we process and eligible for the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kurt.
All right, thank you.
I also want to thank Susan Wernstrom of Supervisor Joni Gray's office, who referred the group to us and ask us to allow the presentation tonight to educate the community on what this county program is doing. So,
Great.
thank you again. Thank you very much. Next is the City Administrator, Executive Director Status Report. Do you have any items?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, audience, and viewers, there is one item on the City Administrator's Status Report from Community Development Director Arlene Pelster, reporting on economic development activities, and she is here to report.
Okay, thank you. Under ongoing projects, as Council is well aware, the team from the California Local Economic Development Association, known as CalEd, performed its on-site professional services review at the end of July. The coordination of the CalEd review required a significant amount of staff time, and that was our primary economic development activity during the past month. A 4-member team interviewed a total of 20 people from our community and presented their initial impressions on the third day, which was July 30th, to the City Council. The team has prepared a written report, and we anticipate receiving it this Thursday. The staff anticipates being able to present the report along with recommendations for the first steps in our new economic development efforts at your regular meeting of September 21st. We also had a meeting on the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies. It's called the CEDS document. This is a document that is necessary in order for the city to qualify for EDA grant programs. The meeting was held on July 22nd at City Hall. It was well attended by 25 community members, and we successfully completed the process of providing our local input. The document has been completed, and it's been submitted to the EDA for review. In the wine ghetto projects, we had our first conditional use permit application, which is going to go to Planning Commission next week. This is a direct result of you're changing the zoning ordinance to allow wine tasting rooms in the ghetto. So you're seeing the results of some of your economic development efforts in establishment of new business in this area. And then later on tonight, you will be hearing an item proposing modification of the eligibility criteria for the electric utility rate schedule, which is an economic development incentive rate. It will provide added flexibility for incentive to new and existing customers. This is another economic development tool which will be available for us to work with businesses. And like I said, that item is scheduled for you later on tonight. And this concludes my report.
Thank you for that report. Are there any quick questions here?
Ms. Pelster, I just wanted to mention that when I was being interviewed by the CalEd team, they asked me if all the department heads in the city were was economic development, their top priority. And then, a couple of weeks later, you come through with the electric department with a really good idea, which will help our businesses as far as incentives go. Yeah. So I must commend the whole staff for, it just came across very, very quickly.
It is a commonly discussed topic at our regular department head meetings because we do realize economic development involves the entire city. So I'm grateful to my colleagues for things that I can put in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pelster. The next item on the agenda is another council request. I'm sorry, the Lompoc Aquatic Center annual report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, members of the audience. Tonight's report's for information only, requires no action, but as promised, we provide the council with the report related to the fiscal operations and program information for the Lompoc Aquatic Center. This report outlines our expenses, revenues, programs, and population served at the Aquatic Center for fiscal year 2009-2010. Since the opening of the Aquatic Center in October of 2006, recreation staff have developed a menu of programs that are aligned with our mission statement, which is to improve the quality of life in our community by promoting positive social behavior, interaction with others, self-discovery, and positive self-esteem through the development, implementation, and coordination of a wide variety of recreation and cultural services. As you may recall, in May of 2009, the Recreation Division recommended to City Council fee increases, program adjustments, and a facility closure for the Lompoc Aquatic Center in our efforts to reduce the subsidy that the facility receives from the general fund. The closure, the reduction of service, and the price increases did have an impact on our facility occupancy. This last year, we saw 89,643 visits from patrons, which is a decrease of 11,206 visits from the previous year. These individuals that did come utilize the facility for programs like recreation swim, lap swim, water exercise classes, party rentals, swim lessons, and a variety of other uses. An example of our programming is the 284 swim lessons, which taught over 1,500 children how to swim, 25 water exercise classes with over 300 participants, 22 warm water therapy classes with over 400 participants, 240 hours of recreation swim, and 1,276 and a half hours of lap swim this last year. The list goes on and on. We offer certification classes, adult swim lessons, and a variety of special courses and camps to include our triathlon and our junior triathlon, which we just held this last weekend. And thank you to Councilmember Cecilia Martiner for helping us out with that this weekend. And our new and exciting cardboard boat float race we had in May this year. The facility is also home to the Tsunami swim team and the Lompoc and Cabrillo High School's boys and girls water polo and swim teams. Combined, these teams have utilized 579 hours of rental time in the water. We use the facility for a variety of other training grounds for California State Parks, American Red Cross, and more. But as we've seen in the past, the private rental program for the recreation pool continues to be popular, with 310 hours of rental occupancy this past fiscal year. The data that we collect from our computer registration and facility booking system showed us that 14% of our customers in our swim lesson and our water exercise classes come from outside the city limits, of which 6% travel all the way from the San Ynez and Santa Maria areas. Additionally, 53% of individuals that rent our facility for private use reside outside the 93436 zip code. Of those renters, 16% were coming from the San Ynez Valley, 22% from Santa Maria, and 5% from Vandenberg Air Force Base. This last year, we actually saw renters as far north as Pismo Beach and as far south as Santa Barbara. Now on to the money. This last fiscal year, 2009-2010, the Lompoc Aquatic Center generated $283,093 in revenue through our Learn to Swim programs, water exercise classes, recreation swim, rentals, lap swim, and other aquatic-related programs. The subsidy that we received this year from the general fund was $293,364, which I'd like to remind you is $60,875 less than the previous year. The total operating expenses for the Aquatic Center was $545,142. Combining the revenue that we made through our user fees and the general fund subsidy, the revenue exceeded the operating expenses by $31,315. In other words, we finished over $30,000 in the black. Last fiscal year, the facility carried, just not this past fiscal year, but the year before, 2008-2009, we carried a deficit of $1,500, and that's with the extra, the $60,000 additional dollars that you gave us the previous year. The year prior to that, 2007-2008, we had a deficit of over $32,000. The aquatic staff continues to evaluate programs and services and make adjustments when necessary to be fiscally responsible. It is very important to note that while these numbers do include all current activity through June 30, 2010, they are still to be considered preliminary numbers until the Finance Department completes their audit later this year. The cost-saving measures, the programs and the program adjustments and fee schedule adjustments, and the closure provided the Aquatic Center the opportunity to operate their budget and accomplish its goal of completing the fiscal year with a surplus. During future budget discussions this year, staff will be providing a recommendation to set aside this surplus or a percentage of the surplus for future repairs or equipment replacement at the Aquatic Center as a result of normal wear and tear of such a popular aquatic facility. In May of 2010, the Recreation Division implemented a new program called the Splash Pass, which is a convenient and affordable option for families to utilize the Aquatic Center on a regular basis for classes, recreation swim, and lap swim. It allows our users to pay a monthly fee and have the conveniences of swiping their card when they come through the door. It's been very popular with over 51 passes sold during the first month of summer. The goal of the Splash Pass is to allow the patrons that affordable and convenient option when registering for swim lessons and attending recreation swim. A lot of the parents are reluctant to send their children with money. They can just send their card, and it's a photo ID. So if they lose it or somebody else tries to use it, we can get it and get it back to them. The program is evaluated on an ongoing basis, and a status report will be given to the Parks and Recreation Commission in January of 2011. The financial goal of the Recreation Division is to sell a minimum of 500 of the Splash Passes in a 2-year period. In conclusion, the Aquatic Center continues to be a valuable asset to the City of Lompoc, attracting customers from many of our neighboring communities and providing a great service to our Lompoc residents. Through the implementation of the Splash Pass program and the introduction of new and creative events, staff remains confident that our annual attendance will see 100,000 again this year. Additionally, with the fee increases that were in effect July 1st, 2009, our diverse program offerings, continuous program refinement, and excellent customer care, staff project that this current fiscal year revenues will continue to exceed overall operational costs for the Aquatic Center. And I do have a few charts for you. Thank you. Just to kind of show you over the past few years what we've done. This is our 3-year comparison of our swim lessons, our water fitness classes, our therapy classes, and our private swim lessons. When we first opened, we don't have a full fiscal year, so our full fiscal year is 2007-2008. We had about 400 swim lessons that we offered to our customers, and over the course of the years, we refined that to 284 lessons, trying to see what our customers' needs are, and as they grow in the aquatic community and their skills are expanding and their needs are expanding, we're able to refine those. Our fitness classes, we've adjusted our fitness classes having to require a larger minimum in order for those classes to attain sustainability financially, and so our fitness program has been adjusted from 67 course offerings in a year to 25 course offerings in a year. That includes also the closure of the facility. That does impact the number of offerings we're allowed to put in the facility. Our therapy classes have also been refined, opening the facility with 42 classes and refining to 22 classes. Our private swim lesson program was extremely popular in the very beginning with 200. Those fees have been raised twice since the facility opened, and we still are seeing over 72 people participating in private swim lessons. The next one is our operating budget. Our revenues, the very first year of operations, was just under $277,000. The following fiscal year, we had just under $293,000. And this fiscal year, we have $283,000 in program revenue. The subsidy, the very first year, full fiscal year of operation, was just under $400,000. Last fiscal year was $354,000, and this fiscal year was $293,000. Our expenses during our full year of operation for the first year of the Aquatic Center's existence was just under $709,000. This last fiscal year, we finished with our expenses at $545,494. The last one is a comparison of our lap swim and our recreation swim. Again, a 3-year comparison, opening the facility at 1,900 hours and through program refinement, finishing with 1,276 and a half hours of lap swim, and recreation swim, starting out, as you remember, we tried some evening hours, some during the week, seeing who would come during the school year. We started with 536 hours, and we've refined that to 240 hours of recreation swim. That's all I have for you this evening, and I'm available for questions if you had any questions.
Any questions or comments from members of the council? Mr. Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very nice report, Ms. Plummer. Thank you very much. Obviously, finishing in the black is a difficult thing to do, and I want to congratulate you on doing that. You had mentioned that a lot of our business is coming from outside of the city of Lompoc and the Lompoc Valley, and I'm hoping and I'm assuming that possibly with some of the recommendations that we're going to be getting this next week from CalEd and our economic development, we could possibly do something with that to not only promote the Aquatic Center, but also promote the city of Lompoc with our fabulous center here. So I'm hoping that, you could possibly take advantage of that to create some extra revenue for that. And then, let's see, possibly, are you working at all with the Chamber of Commerce to have them help promote the Aquatic Center at all? Do they help us promote it?
They help us in answering questions and referring clients that have inquiries about our facility. However, and they're very aware of what we do and what we offer. They help promote our department just in general. However, when it comes to the Aquatic Center, we are on the map. Lompoc is known in very many areas for our Aquatic Center. Not a week goes by that I don't receive a phone call from somebody looking to either build a facility or wanting to come visit, heard about some different types of programs that we're offering, and wanting just to find out more about our facility. And that started when we went into construction, and it continues still today. So we are known not just in the aquatic communities, but I received my latest phone call was from south of Santa Barbara, and they were looking at trying to convince their city government that they needed a community pool in their small community, and how can you do it? How can we do this? And we just walked them through the steps of what we did, and we actually hooked them up with some recreation professionals in their area that could be very supportive and helpful.
Okay. Well, good. And that's exactly my point. I mean, we've got this fantastic center, so keep promoting it, keep promoting the Aquatic Center and the City of Lompoc. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you put the slide back, the operating budget slide? Now, that is incredible. I mean, the three trends that you show in there are just where we want those trends. We see that our revenue has managed to stay the same in 3 years, given the economic environment that we have, where anybody else is having loss of revenues, you continue to have the same. We see that the subsidy is going down. We have difficulties with the subsidy because it comes out of the general funds. And finally, we see that the expenses are going down. So that is really what I find a terrific trend for the operating staff. So congratulations, really.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Rouget.
Yeah, I also wanted to congratulate you, and also on this report. It's excellent. Last year, we had to close the pool for 6 weeks during Christmas. Do you think that's going to happen again, or is this going to be a regular yearly event?
Well, last year we approved a 2-year budget, and in that 2-year budget it showed each year having a 6-week closure. We would like to close that gap because we do feel that we do lose some of our patrons with that long of a closure, but it is currently scheduled for this year to close again. We'll be closing the Monday following Thanksgiving and opening up the second full week in January.
Yeah, because, I heard, complaints because the kids are out of school and the pool's closed, but if we have to do it, we have to do it. But I do commend you for taking good care of our aquatic center.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those in the audience, the presentations up to now have not required any council action. If there's any comments, you can make them during oral communications. You'll have the opportunity to speak on any topic you like. The next item on the agenda is, again, a request from the council. That's why it's here now. But there are some recommendations or some requests for council direction. Because of that, we will have an oral comment period or public comment period after the presentation and before our deliberation and direction. So if you can. And if the members of the CAC would like to stick around until we get to oral communications, which is after this item, the public may have some questions on your operation, and we'll allow them to come up to the podium at that time. So this is a report on the code enforcement team. It's an update, and it's a request for council direction. Terry Schwab.
Thank you, Mayor. Like you said, I'm presenting the code enforcement team status report. After the workshop on June 8th, the code enforcement team reviewed the municipal code and decided the provisions of subsection 10.08.160B were adequate to allow for towing of vehicles for street sweeping, so we are shelving our previous request on that topic. We are recommending the council implement the oversized vehicle parking ordinance in phases, with the first phase addressing parking of unhitched trailers. Code Enforcement Officer Carol Hessen counted all the unhitched trailers parked on city streets and found over 300. Parking of unhitched trailers can cause safety hazards and be attractive nuisances to children. The Code Enforcement team would like the Council's direction in proceeding with drafting an ordinance to limit parking of such trailers on city streets. Our report also presents a recommendation for city policy to be changed concerning weed abatement on residential properties. The government code makes a provision for weed abatement that has been applied by the city to vacant lots only. This has been done by city policy and is not a requirement of the law. We are suggesting city policy be changed to include weed abatement under the government code on residential property. This would allow staff to not only abate the properties pursuant to resolution, but any property abated would thereafter require only a postcard for additional weed control. This is a different procedure from the nuisance chapter in the municipal code and provides for ongoing maintenance when weeds have been cut and then allowed to grow back. The third item is a request for council to implement administrative citations and fines. The municipal code does not currently have a provision for administrative citations and fines. This would be very useful, especially in code enforcement, as it would impose an additional incentive on property owners to bring their properties into compliance. It would also be useful in other matters such as barking dog cases and illegal dumping. The last item in the recommendation was researched by the city attorney. The request is that the council direct staff concerning an ordinance disallowing the citizens to use the public streets as a place to collect personal property. You have 4 items before you, and you can take action on all 4 of them, on one or more of them, or on none of them. Thank you for considering our recommendations. I should be able to answer many of your questions, and other members of the team are here as well.
Thank you. Let's go through the council at this time and ask. Any of you have questions of Ms. Schwab? Mr. Lingle.
We're going to take our questions before the public comment?
I'll take those that you want to clarify now,
okay.
And we'll come back to the council after public comment.
Ms. Schwab, on item number 4, does this address, we're talking about R1 districts and R2 districts. Does this address private vehicles parked on, say, right now we've got a problem with someone parking like 20 or 30 of their vehicles on just on H Street behind the old Marie or D Street, 20 or 30 of their vehicles on the streets there. Does that address these vehicles? They're not necessarily in residential areas.
Could I defer to Joe?
Through the chair, the concept here is to do the best we can to try to deal with that issues of people who are parking, or who are basically using the city streets as parking lots. We have restrictions that we have to conform to because of the vehicle code, and so this is an attempt to come up with a solution that identifies those areas in the city that are more sensitive than others to be able to use this approach. And so that's where we're focusing on the R1, R2 area. It's unlikely that we'll be able to use this approach on a commercial street.
Okay, so then I guess my question is, have you as a commission addressed the parking of these vehicles on commercial streets, the people that are using the city streets as parking lots? And I think we all know of there's at least 1 or 2 individuals that have 20 or 30 vehicles that continually rotate them around. Has your committee worked on that problem?
We've discussed that quite a bit. It's a difficult topic to address.
But none of that is included in this report.
If I may, again, through the chair, we're attempting to deal with it in the way that we know, or we have a good sense that if it's challenged in court, we've created a successful approach to combat that challenge if it happens. Unfortunately, we're restricted because of the state law, the vehicle code, on how specific we can get on specific streets dealing with parking. So we're doing the best we can.
Okay, thank you.
To vacant lots only. This has been done by city policy and is not a requirement of the law. We are suggesting city policy be changed to include weed abatement under the government code on residential property. This would allow staff to not only abate the properties pursuant to resolution, but any property abated would thereafter require only a postcard for additional weed control. This is a different procedure from the nuisance chapter in the municipal code and provides for ongoing maintenance when weeds have been cut and then allowed to grow back. The third item is a request for council to implement administrative citations and fines. The municipal code does not currently have a provision for administrative citations and fines. This would be very useful, especially in code enforcement, as it would impose an additional incentive on property owners to bring their properties into compliance. It would also be useful in other matters such as barking dog cases and illegal dumping. The last item in the recommendation was researched by the city attorney. The request is that the council direct staff concerning an ordinance disallowing the citizens to use the public streets as a place to collect personal property. You have 4 items before you, and you can take action on all 4 of them, on one or more of them, or on none of them. Thank you for considering our recommendations. I should be able to answer many of your questions, and other members of the team are here as well.
Thank you. Let's go through the council at this time and ask. Any of you have questions of Ms. Schwab? Mr. Lingle.
We're going to take our questions before the public comment?
I'll take those that you want to clarify now,
Okay.
And we'll come back to the council after public comment.
Ms. Schwab, on item number 4, does this address, we're talking about R1 districts and R2 districts. Does this address private vehicles parked on, say, right now we've got a problem with someone parking like 20 or 30 of their vehicles on just on H Street behind the old Marie or D Street, 20 or 30 of their vehicles on the streets there. Does that address these vehicles? They're not necessarily in residential areas.
Could I defer to Joe?
Through the chair, the concept here is to do the best we can to try to deal with that issues of people who are parking, or who are basically using the city streets as parking lots. We have restrictions that we have to conform to because of the vehicle code, and so this is an attempt to come up with a solution that identifies those areas in the city that are more sensitive than others to be able to use this approach. And so that's where we're focusing on the R1, R2 area. It's unlikely that we'll be able to use this approach on a commercial street.
Okay, so then I guess my question is, have you as a commission addressed the parking of these vehicles on commercial streets, the people that are using the city streets as parking lots? And I think we all know there's at least 1 or 2 individuals that have 20 or 30 vehicles that continually rotate them around. Has your committee worked on that problem?
We've discussed that quite a bit. It's a difficult topic to address.
But none of that is included in this report.
If I may, again, through the chair, we're attempting to deal with it in the way that we know, or we have a good sense that if it's challenged in court, we've created a successful approach to combat that challenge if it happens. Unfortunately, we're restricted because of the state law, the vehicle code, on how specific we can get on specific streets dealing with parking. So we're doing the best we can.
Okay, thank you.
And if anyone would like us to consider their comments, you're welcome to come up now. I hope you filled out a card. You will watch the lights Who's the time limit? Thank you.
Thank you. Dirk Starbuck, citizen, mayor, council. On these unhitched vehicles, I think we should maybe take a little bit of a proactive approach to this rather than reactive. If there's 300 of these vehicles and a small percentage of them are impounded, where are we going to put them? If we have space to impound vehicles, then we would certainly have space to possibly offer some type of a rental area for people to put them. You can't just drop the hammer on the town and 300 trailer owners and not have an option for them to get out. They have to do something with these vehicles. I think that we need to have a solution before we go ahead and have initiate a law or a resolution on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starbuck.
Good evening. My name is Martin Vanino. I live in Lompoc. You are being asked to make decisions on these 4 proposals tonight, and I feel that it is unfair to us here in town because these proposals are not clear. It's difficult to understand exactly what it is you are being asked to make decisions on. You may have information that we don't have here in front of us, but it's very, very difficult for me to make a comment to help guide your decisions as to what the citizens of Lompoc want when I can't understand this. I don't know what R1 district is. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Vanino. Let's go through all the questions first and then try to answer them.
Good evening, Mayor, Member of Council, Ralph Harmon, Lompoc. Start with page 1 of the staff report. And I have a trouble with when it says trailers unhooked at any time cannot be parked on the street. I would like you to come out and try to back my trailer on O Street into a 9-foot driveway at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. The only way I can do is to park my trailer in the street and wait until the traffic disappears to make that bend in there. Otherwise, I'm blocking traffic 2 blocks down. So when you say any time, that means any time. If you're writing a law, you got to be very specific, and this is what you've done. I think that's erroneous. Now you're going to also create administrative citation with progressive fines. And then you start walking into fines of $100, $250, and $1,000. You're talking court time. Now, not only do we have our enforcement officer writing the citation, going out and doing all that, now you're having that person sit in court. If you've been over to the Lompoc court recently, you'll see how long he may sit there. It could be all day. That's going to cost us money too. Is that something we really want to start doing? Then we get to page 2, and we start talking about city streets to collect personal property. Well, personal property is anything but real property. I'm assuming because of the rest of the report, you're talking about only autos. But that's not what it says. It says personal property. So, well, what is personal property to you? What's it to me? Many different things, I'm sure. So I think we really need to clarify these things. When you're talking about on-hitch trailers, we're going to have to be equal on this thing. We're going to have to go after the people that have their commercial trailers. These sitting over here on Laurel. Overnight, the truckers are leaving them there. They're leaving them in parking lots. They're leaving them over on 8th Street and other places. We're going to have to go after those guys just as much as you're going to have to go after the single people in the single-family residences. And then we get to this personal property and collecting cars and all that. I don't know how you're going to figure out who's collecting cars and who's not collecting cars when this city in the 60s mushroomed with a huge development of triplexes and fourplexes, and they have maybe 2 parking places. Some of them have 4, but you can't really use them because the trash container's in one of them. So those people, many, have 2 cars. Now, are they collecting cars? Are they going to be targeted? Of course, you say no. We're talking about R1, but some of those R2s butt up against R1 residences, and my neighborhood is one of those neighborhoods. In fact, when you go over one block, you're getting into multifamily dwellings. So, some of the other items in here bother me also, but what really bothers me is the amount of time, energy, and the cost. I would like to know, you guys went after the ad hoc committee for your senior citizens center and the cost and all that. What I'd like to know is every time one of these things comes up that's requested, that there be a dollar amount attached to it. How many hours of staff time? Went around and counted 300 trailers. That's great, but who the heck has that much time in the city? If we're paying this out of the general fund, maybe we better get another police officer and another fireman instead of spending all of our money on this kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Any other comments?
Ashley Costa, City of Lompoc. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I would first like to thank City staff for these recommendations. Secondly, I would like to say I think that we're a community very active in the outdoors and nature, and it's something that a lot of us do, and a lot of that need for trailers comes from those activities. I would like to discuss the recommendation A of the Code Enforcement Team update. I would primarily like to pose questions for the council to consider. So I'm going to speak on comments made previously that I'll be echoing, but in a different way. So first, of the about 300 instances where unhitched trailers were found on the street, my question is, was there a random sample taken to try and speak with the owners to determine why they were parked on the street, and more importantly to ask what they would do if this change takes effect? I think that that would be the primary goal, is to try to work with citizens before finding them. And second, without a commercial parking structure or city-determined parking area, where are the trailers going to be parked? What option do these trailer owners have? Now, I understand and I agree that these unhitched trailers are not only an eyesore, but also a safety and traffic hazard, and that something must be done. However, I would hate to see those taking advantage of our great location by utilizing trailers of various uses to be punished with fines. I would ask these questions are answered before the ordinance is implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Costa.
Hi, my name is Fran Milliot, and I've lived in this city since 1962. When I attended the last meeting in June, I was under the understanding that you were going to contact Torrance to see how they worked out their problem on how to handle RV and trailer parking. Has anything happened with that?
After the question and answer session, we'll see if we can address that.
Because I know that this was something that was going to affect a lot of us. I guess I'm a little confused on what it means when you talk about R1 and R2 and using personal, for personal property. Is that meaning cars parked on the street or anything that you own on the street, a motor home, trailer, and so on and so forth? I do have an RV, and I've been waiting to find out when the street sweeper is coming so that I can move my vehicle until we come to a conclusion. I was under the impression that we were going to work on a compromise or something that would work out for everyone using the City of Torrance's plan. And this is what I left that meeting with that understanding. So since I guess, and I know you guys are busy, so it's not like you've got time to be running around to Torrance to find out what they're doing down there. But it would be nice, because there are a lot of us that have lived here for a long time, retired, bought a motor home, like to do some traveling, support the community. Mr. Lynn last time brought up a good point about the street sweeping, saying that it might be a good idea to sweep residential areas in the afternoon and businesses during the morning when they don't have parking problems and park cars. So when the street sweeper went by, I ran out in my pajamas getting ready to move, but then they went on the other side of the street. And so I looked, and it was about 7 in the morning, and there were a lot of cars still parked, kids that going to go to school, people going to go to work. and yet later in the afternoon, there was hardly anyone there except for the few people that don't work or have a motorhome park. So I would really like you to consider following through on what you had planned to do by talking to Torrance. They came to apparently to a situation that worked out for everyone, and there's no place really for us to park. And so, you know, there's a lot of areas around, and maybe something could be done with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, John Lynn, resident of Lompoc. I think the first question you want to ask yourself today, as Dick pointed out to me a long time ago, is are we going to change the way we do business? And when I asked him about something a long time ago, he said, we are a complaint-driven community. When we have complaints, we act because that means the citizens are unhappy. And someone else said later, the function of a law is to protect the many from the few who would abuse. So the first question we need to decide as a council and the community is, do we wish to change from complaint-driven to proactive enforcement of some standard that this council will adopt? I personally do not believe we want to go down that road. With regard to the weed abatement, that's certainly a good idea, and we can accomplish it within the rules that exist, and the weeds are a fire hazard, and certainly unsightly, but perhaps a fire hazard even more. With regard to Councilman Lingel's question, no. None of these ordinances will do anything to remove those vehicles parked on G Street. As long as they're moved frequently and they stay within California law and they're registered and they're insured, there is very little we can do. If you'd like, I can bring some ideas to your attention from another community. There are no rental spaces available in Lompoc for these 100 or 300 trailer owners to put their trailers in. It would be a hardship even if there were. Certainly fining them $1,000 doesn't fix anything. The concept that something is a convenient nuisance because kids might play around it is absolutely silly. If I have been allowed as a child to play around something like that, well, my parents would not have allowed me to, and that is the responsibility of parents. If we consider that a convenient nuisance parked in the street, then is it any different when it's parked in someone's driveway and a kid gets involved in it? As a tower, I surely do not want to tow away 300 trailers, nor is there anywhere in Lompoc with all of the towers combined to tow 300 trailers or any fraction thereof. And with regard to the concept of personal property, I'm scared that you took me seriously when I said all the basketball hoops, because those would be personal property, and I surely did not imply that we should move the basketball hoops, and I don't think that's what this goes to, but you might want to clarify that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Council, Mayor, and Councilman, my name is Dwayne Holmdahl, a citizen of the city. The one area that I will talk to, and I think you can do it tonight, is consolidate the weed abatement under one department. Going through two departments, getting it done is slow and it's hazardous. So one department head, or however you set it up, could do a much better job than the way you have it, because one works open lots and one works residential right now. And it's a whole streamlining process. And of course, people are concerned about the weeds this year, but Mother Nature, you can never decide what she's going to do. And we had late rain, so you got mustard, and people don't want mustard and such, so that it's in the county no matter where you're at. But I know people are upset because they're getting their second notice. But don't blame the city. Blame Mother Nature or yourself because you're not keeping your lot clean. But if you did it under one department, that would be really the best way of doing it. I think it's an easy way to set it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmdahl. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak to us on one of these topics? If there are other speakers, would you please line up so that we can move on with this without
Mayor, Council, I think I'm in the minority. My problem is that, like it says, I have a neighbor who uses his RV as a weapon to intimidate people, because if you say anything to his kids or anything, he parks his or his RV in front of your house. So we've called the police. We've been there. So I agree with a lot of people. We should need a place for these vehicles. He has 2 boats and an RV, and he has decided this. In fact, he doesn't even live on my street, but he parks on our street because he doesn't. And when we asked him about it, his answer was, "I don't like cars in front of my house." They're like, get a clue here, people. We don't either, you know. So I agree with you that we do need a place for these vehicles, but I also think that there should be a law. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak at this time? We'll close oral communication. We'll bring it back back to the council and to. Oh no, we have additional council comments. If any members of the council have any comments at this time that they want to bring up or address the public, Ms. Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just mention that this past weekend I had the honor to be part of the award ceremony of the Lompoc Sprint Triathlon at the Aquatic Center. And what I like to say about this is that there were 128 adults that participated in this triathlon. And I looked at the list. There were individuals from as far as Santa Rosa, which is like 4 hours north of San Francisco. There were individuals from San Diego. So people are coming from faraway places to our aquatic center to participate in an athletic event. So I was quite proud to see that. There were also 44 kids, and that was really quite an amazing thing to see these kids, how competitive they are, and the parents. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rouget.
A couple things happened this last week that I think we need to, as a community, to look at. There are a couple, well, we have a lot of empty storefronts. A couple big companies are coming in to rent our storefronts for 2 months during the Halloween season. I think this is a time when Lompoc needs to, and I look at Mr. Lynn over here, to shop locally and shop your small stores. Some of our businesses are very threatened by what is happening right now, what just happened. The city is not to blame for this. The people have come in, they're paying their lease money, they have business licenses, and the zoning says it's commercial where they're going to be. But I do think this community needs to get behind our smaller businesses and really support them with this effort. We should have been doing this all along, but I think right now it's very crucial that several of our gift shops and smaller businesses are going to be really threatened with what's happening. And I kind of have a feeling it's going to happen at Christmas too. So I'm just asking that the community start shopping locally, and maybe Mr. Lynn can get his bumper stickers out there again, and we can get a big drive going to do that. And I think this is a very serious thing right now. Thank you.
Mr. Lingle.
I want to thank Ms. Roget for bringing that up because it is a serious problem. These vendors that come into town for 30, 60 days and really affect the business of the people that are struggling for 10 months out of the year, keeping their businesses open. And they come in for these 30, 60 days, take the prime business away from our local businesses where we've got people employed, locals, your neighbors are employed by these people 12 months out of the year. So thank you, Ms. Roget. I applaud you for bringing it up. Very important that you look at the person that's been here for 12 months out of the year, supporting you and allowing you to shop in their stores. Then I just have 2 other quick items. One is I received a letter this week, and I'm assuming the other council members did as well. There's no return address on it. It's completely anonymous. It's a nice letter. It's complaining about one of our city employees, and I wish I could follow up on this, but there's no return address. There's no telephone number. It's an anonymous. It just says a concerned citizen. Please, if you have a complaint or a concern about anything that's going on in the city, sign it. I would be, if you want it to be left anonymous, I will, and I'm sure the other council members will not mention your name, but just sign something when you send it to me. Right at this point, I can't do anything with this. So if you have a complaint, come and talk to one of us or sign it. At least give us a phone number. The last item, it'll be real brief. I just want to say happy anniversary to my wife. Hopefully she's watching. Today is our 36th anniversary, and I'm enjoying it right here. Happy anniversary, honey.
I had one comment I was going to make tonight. It was the same, basically the same one that Mr. Lingle mentioned. I don't keep any kind of a list. If I do get a email, if I do get a letter, if it's got as much as a phone number and a first name on it, I will try to contact the person that wrote it. If it's fully anonymous, I usually don't even mention it. This one I am going to mention, and I'm going to tell the subject because I receive anonymous letters or anonymous emails on this subject many times during the course of the year. The individual was complaining because a city truck pulled up in front of in front of Southside Cafe. The individual got out of the city truck during the day and went inside to get a cup of coffee, and that's an outrageous abuse of government property and time on the job. I don't happen to feel that way all the time. I've worked 42 years for the Air Force, and any time I wanted a cup of coffee, I was in an office environment. I could walk down to the hall to the break room and get it, and I could take a break there, or I could take the coffee back to my desk. When I was smoking and they banned smoking, I could go outside a couple times a day and have a cigarette. In City Hall here, the employees do the same thing. We have a break room in the back, and they can get up, and the breaks are good for them at times to make their work more productive. If an individual is out on the street driving a truck, going from job to job, and he wants to take a coffee break, if a crew is out laying down asphalt and they have an opportunity to take a break and they want to run down to the donut shop, fine. We have police officers that patrol the street on 12-hour shifts all night long, and they pull in and take a break from the driving at places where they can get, the joke is donuts, but I've got to have my coffee. So the individual that complained, I'm sorry, I don't agree with the complaint, but I would much rather have called him and talked to him or her personally on it rather than try to answer it this way. And this is the last time I'll answer an anonymous, I hope it's the last time I'll address an anonymous complaint. Finishing up council comments, we will move into oral communication.
Thank you, Mayor. Dirk Starbuck, citizen, Mayor, Councilman. I wanted to go back to the pool real quickly. My math on that showed that we had 49% of the money for the pool was revenue generated, approximately, less than half. That would make over 50% of it general fund. We have Splash Pass now. We have other programs. I think if we got into a little bit more aggressive marketing and selling ourselves, the council should establish a performance goal for the pool of 60% revenue, 40% general fund. That's just a suggestion.
Hold it up here, Todd.
Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Debbie Argel Bastian. The last time I was in this chamber was 5 years and 2 months ago when I lost my son in Iraq. So I'm a Gold Star mother. I lost my son there. Earlier in the audience, we had another Gold Star mother, Monica Diaz, who is left, who lost her son in the war as well. What I'm showing you tonight is something very, very special that's in Congress right now. It's being adopted locally by cities. It's being adopted by different organizations. It's being flown at fire stations and police departments in honor of the first responders that went down on 9/11, as well as the innocent victims that went down on 9/11 and the people that took the plane down. I would like to just briefly tell you what the flag symbolism is, because it's in Congress right now and we have a very special event coming up here in Lompoc. The red field, of course, represents the blood spilled by brave men and women in America's military throughout our history, who gave their lives so that our nation would remain free. The white field below the gold star recognizes the purity of sacrifice. There is no greater price an American can pay than to give his or her life in service to our country. The blue star represents active service in military conflict. This symbol originated in World War I, but on this flag it signifies service in all wars from the American Revolution to the present day. The gold star signifies the ultimate sacrifice of a warrior in active service who will not return home. Gold reflects the value of the life that was given. The folded flag signifies the final tribute to an individual life presented to the family for their significant loss. The flame is an eternal reminder of the spirit that has departed this life, yet burns on in the memory of all who knew and loved the fallen hero. On September 7th, Governor Schwarzenegger will be presented with this flag to fly over the Capitol. It's been adopted in 4 states, and when I talked to Congressman Gallagher today, he said it is going to be an uncontested act and will probably be very soon passed through Congress. On 9/11, another Gold Star father who is in Alaska right now, who has been presenting these flags and will present them to 50 capitals, is not going to spend 9/11 in San Diego or Sacramento or anywhere else. He's going to spend it here in Lompoc. Radio talk show host and the spokesperson for USA Cares, Mr. Dennis Miller, will be the master of ceremonies. Mr. Dennis Miller has never come to Lompoc for an event, so he's donating his time and his effort, along with Ms. Bo Derek, to make this happen. With the Council's permission, the only thing that I'm asking Council to do is to consider participating. And if you can make the event, I'd like to thank Councilman Bob Lingle for his offer of support and for attending the event. If it's possible at all, it would be wonderful if one of the council members or the mayor that's attending the event perhaps give Mr. Lutz some sort of declaration or proclamation for being in Lompoc on 9/11. If any of you can make the event, we'd be very, very honored. We will have participation from Vandenberg Air Force Base and some Gold Star parents flying from the East Coast. So I'd like to thank you for your time and ask permission if I could leave some literature out in the lobby. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Ray Leslie, Lompoc. I've been in here a few times trying to get some information from the council on the property that's going to be brought into the city. And I've sent a written request in to find out what you're doing with my particular property, wanting to know different things about it. There's probably about 6 or 7 questions. And to date, I've never got anything back. It's been 8 months, and I think that's quite a long time. The annexation, I don't know if it's still going through. I don't know what's going on with it. I get the same look every time I come in here, but I get no action. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you guys are hiding something or if something else is going on. I don't know if I need to get an attorney. And it's not a good smile. That there's kind of a crummy one, because I've been really working hard on this. When people get their own property and they work hard, like I have all my life, I've never taken any money from any kind of system whatsoever. I've earned it all myself. And I've busted my butt to try and get to where I'm at. Somebody tries to do something with my property, I'm going to be pretty upset. And all I'm trying to do is find out what you're going to do if you do annexate it. And have the council seen my letter that I sent in? Yeah. How many times do I have to come back? What do I need to do? I hope so.
They've had the hearing with the Planning Commission about the annexations. I believe that was last month. And it will come before council. I believe it's September 17th. Is that correct? The general plan. 21st, excuse me. September 21st.
With all the money we spent on this here with consultants and everything, we must know what we're doing with it by now. If we don't, we're doing a real poor job. I've been in business all my life, and I know something that lasts this long. Somebody either doesn't know what they're doing, or they're unqualified, or something's going wrong and they're hiding something. That's the only thing I can come up with, and it all bothers me. Like I say, I've worked hard to do what I do and what I have. I'd like an answer, and I would appreciate a call tomorrow and find out just where it's at and what's going on with it.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie.
And also, this is something you're not going to like either, but when people deserve something, they earn something, they work hard to try and get something going, they deserve something, you know, that what I'm getting at is this senior center being named after Dick DeWeese. We've made a mockery of the senior center, I think. I think our city has let us down. They gave the property away. The money is not there now, I understand. There's a lot of things going on. But for our city to abandon the seniors, which I think they have done, and then to name this after one of you, I think it's a real bad thing to do. I don't think it's fair to the community, and I think you ought to really think about that before you do it. Thank you.
Martin Vanino, City of Lompoc. I wanted to make a few comments about the plan or the ordinance that Torrance has. I am from Torrance, and I did research this subject, and everything the gentleman back here said is accurate, but I would like to add a few comments to that. One of the things is it was stated that residents could get permits to park in front of their house to load and unload from a camping trip, but I just want to be precise that those permits are purchased. They're not free in Torrance. Same thing for visiting permits for visiting people. Those those permits are also purchased. The City of Torrance issues or allows you to purchase a limited number of permits during any given year. And also, they did have a phase-in period. They did not pass an ordinance where it was one day to the next, all trailers off the road. It was you had to register your vehicle, your trailer, and you had a period of time to find another alternative of where to put it. There is a major issue here. I don't know how the City of Torrance dealt with it, but we do have a parking issue. When I purchased my house, I had no intention of owning an RV. I do now own one, and there's no room on my lot to put it. Okay, and there's nowhere else to put it. So that is an issue whether we like it or not. This whole issue of whether people can park their trailers, their RVs, their gardening business trailers on the street, I believe is a colossal waste of Lompoc's time. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of the city attorney's time. It's a waste of all of our time. This is not an issue that we should be dealing with right now, in my opinion. And these are costs that we should not be incurring. This is not a priority for me. We came to Lompoc, or I chose Lompoc because I did have liberties. I did have freedoms. I was allowed to do things that I would not have been allowed to do in a gated community where they have restrictions, rules, and fines. I didn't want that, and I chose to live someplace that didn't have that. So personally, and I know I'm not speaking only for myself, I think we are wasting time on this subject at this point. Thank you.
Evening, Mayor's member of the council, Ralph Harmon. I just want to backtrack a little bit because councilperson Martiner made some remarks that I'd like to address. One of them was that she made a remark about the trailers lowering property value. If that's the case, I would like to know what the evidence is of those property values being lowered just because there's a trailer parked in the neighborhood. If you have evidence, I'd like to know what it is. When we talk about economic development, and you've tied this to economic development, this whole trailer thing, let's start talking about the broken garbage cans that are spewing garbage all over the streets of Lompoc. This has been going on for years and years. We put in those large, the biggest containers for the apartment houses and what have you. Almost every one of them has a broken lid. The garbage company, I know that my sanitation goes around, tries to fix them, but they break just as soon as they can, it seems like. So, and it's a problem that needs to be taken care of because the rubbish is all over the streets. And now also, I don't know if you folks have noticed it, but I sure have, and other people have, that since the rates went up and at the landfill and they're charging now for recycled material and all the others, guess where it's going? It's out in the alleys, it's behind the shopping centers, it's beginning to stack up. So then let's get to the sign ordinance. Talk about economic development. How long has Mervyn's been gone? I believe the ordinance we have on hands has something like the sign must be removed in 6 months. How many stores do we see that the signs are still up? Nobody does anything about that. So why are we talking about more ordinances? And we can't do what we do with what we have. So let's get with it, folks. Take care of what we have now and quit wasting time and money on trying to come up with more things that you're not going to be able to enforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
John Lynn, City of Lompoc. First, unfortunately, the CAC guys left, but on behalf of the dog park and the foundation, we want to thank them for cutting the trail in through the hillside so that you can now get in and out of there when it rains, and it's a lot more pleasant. I think there's some decomposed granite in the future for that, and they did that for the community. Just as a general announcement, they are looking for construction tools and landscaping tools. So if you have some things sitting in your garage at home that you would like to donate, you're welcome to drop them over at my store, or you can contact them directly. They've also been helping us with the foundation building downtown at no cost to the foundation. All we did was supply the materials, and they're doing an outstanding job. With regard to the piece that was mentioned earlier regarding the Halloween store that's opening in, I believe, the former Big Lots location, that is the principal vendor of one of our small shops in Lompoc. They looked at the order that individual wrote. They said, wow, look, he's going to sell a lot of stuff in Lompoc, so we'll go open a store there and we'll sell it out from under him. He'll be stuck with this pile of stuff he bought from us, and we'll make a lot of money. We'll sell it all twice. Now that's what I call the lowest of the low. We in the car stereo business, and I speak for myself and for New Era Auto Sound, both suffered through a month and a half of someone who went into Mervyn's. And again, it's a free market economy, but I want to talk about the results. This is a very, very tough economy, and the result of it was I laid somebody off and he laid somebody off. So by virtue of that vendor coming to Lompoc and selling principally reconditioned merchandise without a sticker and calling it used, which is all good and legal, 2 people in this town lost their jobs. And that's exactly what happens. Yes, I'd love to print some more stickers, and I have some. regarding the mayor's comment on the guys getting their coffee, it is California law. You do get 2 breaks. Okay, now the main event. Thank you to Councilmember Martner for bringing up the sign ordinance, and I have brought the things that I promised. So this is the, you pass that to council members. This is the structure that was used by the Chamber of Commerce Task Force, and those were our objectives in developing a new sign ordinance. And then next is the questionnaire that we sent out to a large number of people, and I won't burden the council with a discussion of who we sent it to. And then based on that, we got the results back. Dirk was on the committee. Mr. Maya was on the committee. Arlen was on the committee. Martin was on the committee. And at least one other person I'm forgetting, so I apologize. And as a result of that, in 5 meetings, we developed this amended sign ordinance, which has the amendments in green and the strikeouts in black. I ran out of time to print 5 copies. I apologize. So here's 2. I'd like to have one go to Councilmember Martner, since she initiated it. And then, Mayor, perhaps you could see that the other council members get one. I am supplying a disc which has all those changes on it. I'm sure everyone on the committee would be happy to get back together and do anything we could to make this happen as quickly as possible and get this done. And I want to thank you for your time. Thank you, Cecilia. Yes, ma'am.
When was this done, John? I can't remember.
That was
like 5 or 6 years ago. This one I was on.
We started in 2005, and we completed it in early 2006.
Yeah, so I thought.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ashley Costa, City of Lompoc. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, I would like to speak on the Aquatic Center report as well, agenda item number 1. First, I wanted to thank staff for the annual report, which I believe was greatly needed. I think it's definitely a great support of the use of the Aquatic Center, the need in the community, and I think that's wonderful. I'm also very pleased to see the trend of the figures. However, as part of a generation who is burdened with these costs, I would like to see even more efforts towards sustainability. My work in nonprofits has shown me that when you get funding for something, you need to prove sustainability to a certain level. Funding only lasts so long. So whether that is possibly a report that shows future expectations, a statement by the council that outlines your expectations for their revenue versus general funds given to the project, I would like to see more of these positive efforts towards reducing the city's cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public at this time? Seeing no one rise, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We've been at it, the council's been at it since 6:30. Let's try to hold it to 10 minutes and get back here, and then we will go into the first item of business. Let me first try to address some of the questions that were asked. We first point out this is general guidance that's been requested. We don't have an ordinance in front of us. This is, do we want the team to prepare an ordinance? Are there specific things that we might want in the ordinance or not want in the ordinance? This is just for general guidance as to how the council acts. So the specific wording, a better definition of the word personal property, things like that would be in the draft ordinance when it comes to us, and there will be plenty of opportunity for people to comment at that level on the specifics if an ordinance does come that far. The amount of time and energy and cost to prepare this, we all agreed up here at the council level that we want to see stricter code enforcement. I have received a good number of complaints from the community that we're letting the community look worse and worse and worse because we're not addressing this issue. And so the issue has to be addressed, and I feel that it's worthwhile to get an indication of the importance of the project, so that we can deal with it as it needs to be dealt with. I'll ask if there's anybody looked into Torrance and their ordinance, Mr. Pannoni.
Mr. Mayor, I've looked into the Torrance Municipal Code and the section that was being referenced before, and I can speak to that issue if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Would you please?
The City of Torrance has, in addition to their municipal code that prohibits the parking of oversized vehicles and trailers on any city street. And they go on to define oversized vehicle as any vehicle which exceeds 20 feet in length, 7 feet in width, or 8 feet in height. And it also includes any freestanding trailer. And they prohibit those throughout the City of Torrance. And they even identify that the purpose, they issue actually parking permits to a limited degree, and they state specifically in the municipal code that the purpose of issuing those permits is to allow owners for a limited time to park in front of or next to their own property. There is a process by which they apply for a permit. Permits are good for a 24-hour period, and there's a limited number of permits they can get in a given year. There is a provision for permits for visitors who may be coming to visit the property owner, and they would have the means to get a permit issued by the department. That is, in effect, what the Torrance Municipal Code covers and what's been enacted in that city.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments of the rest of the council on the questions that we've had, or the comments in response?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask the legal counsel to answer some of the questions.
My notes reflect that there were about 9 areas of question, and I'll try to run down the list and answer them, and possibly some of the code enforcement team members may have some other comments. One question was, were the individuals who are parking on the street, the parking trailers on the street, contacted to find out why they're parking on the street? We didn't do that. We understood that there was a concern by council of parking trailers on the street, and so we were just addressing, trying to deal with that and find out how many were there, not why they were there. There's a request was made that nothing be done until some alternative parking area is found for a trailer to be parked. That's certainly a policy decision that the council can make if that's what you'd like to do. There was a request that there be, or a suggestion that there possibly be no fine in order to provide an opportunity again to work with the people rather than just use a stick. That again is a policy decision if you wanted to make. It may be difficult to do it if we don't have some leverage. There was a question about Torrance, and that's been answered as we understand it all. There was a concern about changing from complaint driven, and I believe the mayor has already addressed that question. There was a suggestion that we consolidate weed abatement in the city under one department, and actually that would be our next step if the council does decide to go with the weed abatement as we're suggesting. That was going to be one thing that we looked at to see how to best operate that. There was a concern that if we have administrative citations, we're going to spend a lot of time in court. Actually, the administration citation is an alternative to going to court. The city sets up its own hearing process if someone wants to fight an administrative ticket, and then you really don't have to go to court. The only time you have to go to court is if someone didn't pay and the city wanted to pursue the payment through small claims court. There was a concern about we would have to deal with the semi-trailers that are on the commercial streets. Actually, one of the suggestions that we were making is that those could be accepted. We would exempt those type vehicles from the coverage of the unhitched trailer ordinance, because the same safety concerns and nuisance concerns we didn't feel were there. However, if the council wanted to include those, we've given you an option to include that too if you wanted. And then there was a question about what does R1 mean. Basically, it's a single-family area, single-family home areas in the city that would be addressed by that idea of not using streets for personal property. And the mayor is correct in saying when we come back with the ordinance, it's those details that we'd be coming back with. That's all the questions I had.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doney. Let me bring it down to the council. Mr. Lingle, let me suggest there's 4 different subjects before us. Let's deal with them one at a time and deal with the first one, which is the do we want an ordinance addressing unhitched trailers, including fifth wheels, and do we want some variation or some sort of the items that are listed under that under 2A? Mr. Lingle?
I guess Mr. Pannoni could answer this one. In number 1, recommendation number 1, this does not address RVs, is that correct?
Correct.
So an RV owner is going to be doing everything that they are tomorrow as they are today. So
except if it's a fifth wheel.
That's my next question. Okay, so an RV owner, there's no change to the way they operate.
Correct.
Okay. At the last meeting we talked about this, we did discuss the fifth wheel, and I thought it was decided that a fifth wheel was in fact an RV. Isn't that no longer the definition of an RV?
I agree with you that the council wanted to treat fifth wheels as the RVs. The issue that staff was dealing with is the idea of trying to take care of unhitched trailers, and 2 issues would have arisen if we didn't include fifth wheels in the definition of unhitched trailers. One was the same public safety concerns that are trying to be addressed through other unhitched trailers also applies to, and sometimes even a greater concern with fifth wheels because of their weight and the way that they could be set up. The other thing is we weren't quite sure how to differentiate between a fifth wheel type of trailer and all the other kinds of recreational vehicle kind of trailers. And there didn't really seem to be any logical reason to differentiate between every other trailer that's a trailer that people sleep in and not a fifth wheel.
Okay. And then the other, on the similar note, also at that meeting, I believe I had talked about or recommended that we, with the RVs, we have something in there that says that an RV owner must park their RV in front of their legal residence as opposed to around the corner at their neighbor's residence. And then also I had wondered, and I talked about our long-term goal, I believe, year, 2, 3, 4 years from now is to find a space for these RVs and maybe not have any RVs or anything on the street. So maybe putting a time limit on this. By people that own RVs today, registered RVs today, they can park in front of the street. But if you, after we pass an ordinance, if we pass an ordinance, next year you're under the same requirements as anyone else that has a unhitched vehicle, you need to find a space for that. Was that discussed?
Just to be sure that I'm clear, what we're suggesting tonight doesn't deal with RVs.
I understand.
So the discussion about RVs, I'm not sure if you were focusing on the unhitched trailers when you were just speaking of RVs, or we were speaking of RVs. So if it's the trailers that you're talking, the unhitched trailers, if what you're saying is you'd like to have some grandfather provision that says and unhitched trailers can stay for some period of time and then the city will enforce that law, certainly when we come back with an ordinance we could do that if that's what the majority of the council would like to do.
What I'm talking about is if we decide on one of this A, B, or C, is adding a line discussing RVs, that the RV owner must be a responsible RV owner and does not park it around the corner in front of someone else's house. Must be parked in front of their residence. I believe we were going to be discussing that last time we talked.
Because of the restrictions that the vehicle code has and because public streets are public streets, it would be difficult for the city to be able to enforce a law that says you can only park your car in front of your house on a public street, whether it's an RV or a car?
Well, the city of Torrance says that they cannot park them on their street.
We could do that too. You can't park them anywhere. It's not you can't park them anywhere but in front of your house, is you can't park them anywhere. That the city has, the vehicle code does provide that.
So no matter what we do tonight, the RV owner, we're going to have to rely on them being responsible and not having 3 RVs parked in front of their neighbors' houses.
If you do any of the things that are on the list tonight, the RVs aren't included, so we're not dealing with RVs.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Rouget.
Oh, my. It's another Pandora's box I think we've opened. Okay, we're supposed to just, right now, we're talking about the unhitched trailers. That's it. I have a question. There's nothing in here that says about the trailers or unhitched trailers that are commercial, that people have businesses like gardeners. That doesn't take care of that at all, make an exception.
That's correct. If someone has a commercial business that has an unhitched trailer and you were to adopt or direct, that unhitched trailer would be covered by this as well.
So could we make a caveat that in the ordinance that would say that if it's a business trailer, it could be left on the street? Or is that?
I would, if that's something that the council would like to do, I would suggest give that direction. We would have to analyze that and see whether there's a justification to treat a commercial trailer a little different than another trailer because we're trying to protect from safety issues.
Yeah.
So we just have to think about that.
And then the other question I had was Mr. Harmon brought up about not parking on any city street at any time. Could we have, like when someone's trying to, like he has a short, I know it's a narrow street too, that you could park there for, I don't know. I don't know how that would get monitored anyway, actually. I don't know.
Mr. Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Those are the only questions I had right now about the unhitched trailers. And as we said, we started out with this to try and clean up our streets. And now it's all of a sudden it's gotten into this big brouhaha about, what's a trailer, what's not a trailer, when can I park it, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I would like to see some kind of time limit that you could have your trailer out in the front if you're doing moving it or something. And then the moving trailers, does that means like a U-Haul trailer or something? Oh, okay. Okay. That's all I had right now.
Ms. Martiner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question regarding the public safety aspect of unhitched trailers. And the question is, I believe, a legal one. If somebody gets hurt by whatever means being around an unhitched trailer that is in a city street, is the city liable?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. So we are, if we enact an ordinance, would be just from the point of view of looking at public safety in our community or trying to promote public safety in the community. There is no legal liabilities behind that.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. So going back to that, to the unhitched trailers, and looking at the fact that we started looking at code enforcement for the purpose of having a short-term economic development type of thing. Many homeowners have come to us and expressed that their property values continue to go down. The neighborhoods are looking worse and worse, and we need to protect our property values. Doing a code enforcement at this time might provide a certain level of pride in the neighborhood that we live by making it look clean, by making it look safe, or by making it safe. So I do think that we need to have an ordinance for unhitched trailers. I have heard the concerns, where do we put these trailers? the government cannot take care of your personal property everywhere. I mean, if you have many unhitched trailers, it is your responsibility to do something with it. So I really, I have heard both sides, and I still go back to the basic premise that we want to enhance the value of our community, we want to make our community safe, and we have to give owners ownership in what they own and take care of it. So I will support having an ordinance that will prohibit unhitched trailers in our city streets. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Couple of comments. First, I appreciate your breaking the problem down and dealing with only a portion of it at a time. If we were to try to deal with recreational vehicles, if we were to try to deal with all of the other things that we need to do in beautification, improvement of the appearance in our city, I think we would we'd never get there. So I understand why the problem is greater, the numbers are greater of the mobile homes and motor homes that are parked on the street, and let's work with the trailers first, and then let's go to the next step. With respect to having an ordinance, I agree with an ordinance. I think the trailers are a nuisance. I don't think they're attractive. I don't think they belong in residential neighborhoods when they're unhitched and left on the streets. There are problems. Mr. Harmon mentioned if he brings home a motor home, or rather a trailer attached to his truck, and tries to back it in the driveway during rush hour, the traffic is too heavy on his street. But you could park it, leave it hitched, and you have no problem at all. And if you need to go to the store or whatever, you have just driven it wherever, all over the country with it attached to your vehicle, you could run that errand and still pull it in and then back it in. I think that we're looking for problems that may not be there. In addition to moving trailers that might be unhitched there, I would like to see an exception for debris trailers or the trash collection devices where there's permitted construction work being done in a home. If somebody is re-roofing their home, if somebody is, and the only alternative is to park the trailer on the street for a few days until they get all the construction debris in there, it's an overall improvement, and it would be a hazard for a short period of time. I think the benefits of having the construction work done in the neighborhood improved would outweigh the temporary risk on that. And at least there, that if it's a permitted process, that people in the neighborhood know that it will be gone and the neighborhood will be look better after it's gone. So I would like you to proceed with an ordinance to prohibit the unhitched trailers. I'd like to accept the semis from dropping their trailers on established areas for their parking. And when you come back to us with the ordinance, I would like to see some kind of a report as to what it would take these days for someone to establish a parking lot, a parking area. Because I know with stormwater regulations and with other things, it may be very difficult for someone to store vehicles on property. And I think we need to know how hard it will be. As far as surveying the individuals when we go around to count them, the reason we have the hearings here is that if people are impacted, they can come forward and tell us that they're impacted. So I don't think we have to go out and knock on doors and ask the people what they would do if the ordinance passes. If they're going to be impacted, they have every opportunity to come before us and talk to us. Those are the comments that I have on the, and I don't think, unless anyone on the council wants a specific motion, I think if we give our views with this team, that's all this was supposed to be, was guidance. The team can jot down the things that we comment on and try to incorporate them, and maybe and let's
And if, at least from my perspective, if I'm unsure that I understand what the consensus is, I'll ask a question.
Okay. So that, Bob?
So we are not, we're just making general comments. We are not directing them for A, B, or C.
We have, it would help them to know how to prepare the ordinance.
As I understood, at least the mayor, what the mayor has suggested and what the vice mayor suggested is go with 1A with some possibility of including an exception for construction bins or construction trailers, for lack of a better way to describe it. Yes. And Councilwoman Roget suggested that there be some time limit. So there's got to be clarification, because the mayor said doesn't need a time limit, and Councilwoman Roget said she'd like to see a time limit. So I'm not sure what the direction is on that.
Well, as I said, as I'm thinking about it, it would be hard to enforce or monitor a time limit. Somebody somebody have to be moving through this city all the time. So I don't think that's too practical, actually.
And maybe the police chief may like to express some comment, but my guess would be that we're not necessarily going to have someone driving around to every street every second of the day. So if that eventuality happened, that someone was there for a half hour or an hour, it's not likely they're ever going to get noticed and cited anyway.
Right. That's what I think. It's not practical.
I have one additional general comment, and it doesn't concern trailers, because if we get the trailers off the street, but we've been told in the past that one of the problems with the motor homes that are on the street is that if the owner goes out and sees the yellow chalk mark and knows that somebody has started counting the 72 hours, they move it. They roll it forward 6 inches or 2 feet or whatever, and then you got to wait until its chalk mark is put down again to start the clock. Is it possible to use invisible spray that would be seriously that's visible only under ultraviolet light? We do that every time. We do that every time we go into the stadium. They stamp our hands. You can't see the stamp, but if you go out and you go back in, you stick your hand under an ultraviolet light and it identifies it's there. And I just wonder if marking with invisible light would not be alerting the owner of the vehicle that we're marking time on them. And if the code enforcement officer comes back by and shines an ultraviolet light on it and sees it there and knows that it was 3 days or 4 days since the mark was made, they have violated the ordinance. And it's just a suggestion that might work. And I know it sounded funny on an invisible mark, but I was thinking of those that are not visible, obviously, and without the ultraviolet light. And that's something that maybe could be looked into. I don't have any other comments on A. Ms. Martiner, do you have a comment there?
Well, Mr. Mayor, talking about RVs is not on the agenda tonight, so I think we need to stick to the agenda items. RVs need to be talked at one point in time later, and I hope that the code enforcement team will bring the RV issues to the agenda. But tonight we're discussing only unhitched trailers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move now to B, concerning weed and rubbish abatement on residential properties. Do you have any? I saw no more lights, and do you have any more questions or advice as to what? Okay. B is to direct staff concerning weed and rubbish abatement on residential properties. Do we want to change the city policy to include the abatement of weeds and rubbish on residential properties as well as vacant lots? Do we want to change the policy and continue, no change in the policy, and use the two different systems based on the type of property we're dealing with? Mr. Lingle.
To speed up this process a little bit, I just want to put my 2 cents in saying that I'm in favor of option A, to change the policy to include the abatement of weeds and rubbish in residential properties as well as in vacant lots. and regulation of lenders of properties in foreclosure and loans in default. So.
I second that.
Okay, I have a question. This will be monitored the same way our weed abatement, or vacant lot weed abatement is, correct? So we have the property owner's name and we send them a notice.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And I had this discussion with the city administrator. And I know it says it's recurring weed abatement, but I sure would like to see it more than once a year, and I hope that this means that this will be ongoing weed abatement. And I was told it's going to be, so let's hope it is. I also would like you to work on, which you said you were going to, on putting the weed abatement under one department. I think that's a better idea.
I think all of us feel the same way on that one. If you no other comments, we'll go on to C. Should we have a system of administrative citation and fines for failure to comply? And would you like to see a draft ordinance on that come before us? I think, I'll answer. I started to talk. First, on this one, I think we've already heard that it saves labor on our part, that it saves a lot of the formalities of going to court, and I'm very much in favor of it. I don't think we can have any kind of a program unless we've got something to back it up. Ms. Rouget.
Well, let me get this straight then. If it's $100, is that for within a 12-month period, and then it kicks it up to $250, and then it goes up to $1,000?
That's the concept. But again, if the concept wants to be changed, and when the ordinance comes to you, if you read it and you want to do something different, you'll have that ability when the ordinance comes to you.
Yeah, I have a problem with fines. As you know, I live in a homeowners association, and we do levy fines, and have a really hard time collecting them. So I don't know how effective this is going to be, because if you're breaking the ordinance and you really don't give a darn, someone gives you, it just keeps going up and up. Do you go eventually then to small claims court? Is that where that would lead to?
That would be one approach. Another approach is we could, depending upon what the violation is, we could make it a lien on the property if it's not paid.
Right, yeah.
Depending on what the violation is.
Right, that's what we do. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Lingle?
I'm in favor of the progressive fines. I mean, we've talked about becoming more responsible, more rigid on the offenders, and the people that are offending, it's the few that are going to be getting these fines and citations. So I'm not really that concerned about the person that gets a $100 or $500 fine for repeat offenses, because the person living next to them is going to be very thankful for us. So I'm in favor of this, and hopefully we can get our city cleaned up.
Mr. Mayor, I'm also in favor of number 3A.
Thank you. The last one, number D. We had some questions also during public comment period. There's a better definition of the term collect personal property. If you could find a little more, is that going to include someone that puts a basketball hoop on their sidewalk in front of their house?
When the ordinance comes back, if you choose to go forward, that definition will be better laid out, and we'll keep that in mind, that that's not the kind of private property that you want to include. However, we have to recognize that if we start making exceptions to the private property collection, we're going to, and I always hate to give people who may be opposing the city some ideas, but it will be more difficult for the city to, again, try to say that what you're trying to do is enforce the purpose of a single-family residential area, which is to have a quality living area. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that basketball courts can't be in the street, but we'll have to think of a way to differentiate that with some other things.
Okay, Mr. Lingle.
Mr. Pannoni, what was the committee's discussion when they were discussed between the R1 districts and any residential district?
The R1 zone has less traffic, if you will. The concern was that the more dense zones, in essence, end up having more vehicles on the street. What we need to remember is that the focus of this is an attempt to deal with a significant issue that the council feels is significant enough to have to deal with, meaning people who are using your city streets for their own private parking lots. And we're doing that within the restrictions that the vehicle code sets on us. And so we had to come up with some other way to deal with that issue. And so this is trying to deal with it in a way that we feel is giving the city the strongest arguments if it was challenged. And the strongest argument is for a city to use its zoning code, and since the R1 zone is the most protected by cities for uses and quality of life, that's why we focus on the R1 zone. We recognize that those people who are parking, who may be using streets, even if they're currently using the R1 zone streets, they may just move their vehicles somewhere else. But we thought at least we could take a first step and see how it works.
Okay, I'm a little concerned with this because I believe it is just going to be shifting a problem from one area to another, and it does not address the problem I was talking about earlier, where we've got one or two people with 20 vehicles just running them around from corner to corner. If this is the first step, what you're saying, and possibly getting to the next step, then I'd be in favor of this. So I'm going to leave it up to my fellow members to decide on this one, because I don't know if there's enough teeth in this to satisfy my desire to get the majority of the streets, or the majority of the cars off the street.
Mr. Mayor? I tend to agree with Councilmember Lingle that we need to look at the whole problem, I think, as far as how we're going to restrict the use of personal property in our city streets, whether it's an R1 or whatever else. So what I would like to do is to ask the code enforcement team to review this item and perhaps address it more completely, if that's possible, and come up with some other option. That's because I don't feel that I have enough information to make a statement and say, yeah, this is good enough for now, and what are the consequences later.
Mr. Lingle?
I'm sorry, I'll come back. Was this intended as a first step, and we're going to go forward to be able to address further issues, or is this as far as the committee was able to go at that point?
This is as far as our creative legal minds could come up with a way to try to deal with the concern the council has, understanding that it wasn't going to solve the whole problem, and it may be that the second step may be coming back to you and saying, you know, all that did is shifted the problem, so why don't we get rid of the ordinance that we just adopted? So it's a work in progress, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Okay. And it wouldn't be offensive to me or the team, I'm sure, that if the council isn't quite ready to go forward with this concept, but again, do some more analysis and see if we can come up with even more creative ideas to be able to cover the entire breadth of the problem. We're certainly willing to do that.
And that's what I'd like to see. I agree with Ms. Martiner that maybe go back, put your minds together, because we really do, I'm speaking for the council, we appreciate all the time and effort you've been putting into this. And these are all first steps in trying to clean up our city, and we appreciate that. But this item, I'm just concerned it's going to be shifting it from one neighborhood to another, and which is not really what my intent is. So I'd rather solve the problem than shifting the problem.
Okay.
Yep, I agree with my other two council members.
We're going to have our plate full with just the first one if you bring it forward to us. So we'll deal with that one first and then go on. Do you have any? We've given guidance. Do you have any additional questions that?
I don't. I'm going to look at the team members and see if they have any questions that they want to make sure get asked. I don't see any hands, so I think we're okay.
Okay, we will then conclude this item and move on back to order as such as it is. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our consent calendar. There are 6 items on the consent calendar tonight. They are routine, non-controversial items, including minutes, check register, the ordinance formalizing the previous action taken at the last meeting, mutual aid reimbursement for the Jesuita fire of approximately $6,000, and an agreement with the county for operation of the library system. These, because they're routine, are no individual public comments on them. What are the wishes of the council on the consent calendar?
There is one last item to mention, which is the approval of the MOU. It was on the next page, just mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
We have a motion.
I second.
And a second. Let's vote. Consent calendar is approved 401. The next item on the agenda is the I switched 2 pages at once. I'm sorry. Is the appointments. We have one appointment to make tonight. Human Services Commission member Connie Setluck had to resign from service on that commission. That seat is the one that's assigned to the mayor. I propose to nominate Joshua Craig. His qualifications are listed in the agenda packet. Joshua is here, and I'll give him the opportunity to speak if he'd like. He's taken on a big job. And acknowledge. He was here earlier this evening when we met with the Human Services Commission, and he'll fill that chair that was empty for that meeting. What is the wishes of the council on the?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second your nomination.
Thank you. It's been nomination and second. Those, let's cast our vote, please. Unanimous, and I don't know what Tony Durham has against you that he didn't vote. Thank you very much for being willing to serve on that commission. The next item on the agenda is the award of project number 50, fiscal year 08 P2, the Richard D. Weiss. We were going to try to change that to the Dick DeWeese Center. I think is okay. I'm sorry. Community Center. Michael Luther.
Good evening, Council. Mayor, my name is Mike Luther, Senior Civil Engineer. I'm here tonight to ask Council's approval of the construction contract for the new Senior Community Center. At the April 20th City Council meeting, staff was directed to solicit bids for the construction of the project. The Engineering Division took over the project management and advertised the project on May 28th. A pre-bid meeting was held on June 17th. On July 8th, 6 bids were received by the City Clerk's office and publicly read. Bids received ranged from a low of $3,591,000 to a high of $4,258,000. The architect's estimate for the project was $4,368,576. On July 20th, a bid protest was received from the second low bidder. The protest claimed violations of Public Contract Code Section 4100, Subletting and Subcontracting Fair Practices Act. After a thorough review by the Public Works Director, City Attorney, and staff of the material issues contained in the protest, the Public Works Director determined the protest was without merit, and on July 27th issued a formal determination denying the protest in accordance with City of Lompoc Municipal Code Section 3.36.170, Procurement Protests Procedures. No further action was taken by the protester. Once the construction contract has been awarded by council and fully executed by the contractor will have 300 calendar days to complete the project. It is anticipated that the contract can be executed and a notice to proceed issued by September 27th. This would put the anticipated completion date for the project at July 24th, 2011. In November of 2009, the Engineering Division advertised a request for proposals for the constructability review, construction management, and inspection services for the project. 7 proposals were received, and the 2 highest ranked firms were interviewed. Harrison Associate was selected as the preferred firm based on those interviews. Staff is now requesting that Council award the construction management services contract to Harris Associates for this project. Harris has been in the business for over 35 years, employs a staff of over 350, and recently completed work for the City of Lompoc on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. The construction manager for Harris is a local resident who will be able to respond if needed on short notice. Some of the key tasks of the construction manager will be documentation of the work, review of submittals, manage project correspondence and data, monitor construction schedule, change orders, payment requests, quality control inspections, daily reports, mitigate claims, coordinate material testing, and ensure that building inspections are completed as needed. Previous council approval of the use of up to $1.5 million of CDBG funds and authorized the use of RDA bonds proceeds for the project. Given the favorable bid and the greater than expected bond proceeds, staff recommends that the CDBG allocation of this project be reduced back to the $1,034,942, the CDBG investment in the original Lompoc Valley Community Center. At the October 6, 2009 council meeting, council voted to name the center after the late mayor, Richard L. DeWeese. Since that time, staff has been referring to the project as the Richard L. DeWeese Senior Community Center. The late mayor's widow has since requested that the center be named the Dick DeWeese Senior Community Center, since everybody knew the late mayor as Dick, not Richard. At this time, I'm available for questions.
Are there any questions by the council at this time, or you want to wait for public comment? Stand by. We'll open it at this time for public comment. If you have any comments that you'd like to make to City Council on the item before us, you have 5 minutes to speak. We'll ask you to line up at the podium. Seeing no, almost.
Mayor, City Council. I know most of us knew Richard as Dick DeWeese. Where I have a problem is that maybe somebody 100 years from now or 200 years from now come back and want to find out who Dick DeWeese was, and they won't find anything. His Christian name was Richard DeWeese. Dick is a nickname. On our building out here, we have a Pooley Jacobs. Pooley was not his name, but his first name's there with Pooley in parentheses. So I think I kind of think of these things as monuments, if you would, and it should be by his proper name. So if there's anybody want to do any research or anything else, there was a Richard L. DeWeese that was born at a certain place to a certain parent, and was raised in a certain school at a certain time, and served this city as mayor for many terms. So I think if you want to put Dick in there, put it in parentheses, put it in the middle. But let's honor his name. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scudder.
Pat Brady, citizen of Lompoc. Mayor and City Council members, this is a real picky little thing. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether it's his Christian name or Dick DeWeese. I'm all for naming it after Dick. I've had this, I'm sure Dan will attest to this, the whole time I was on this committee. Is this our community center, or is this strictly a senior center? I'm a senior, I want a center, but to me, this is a community project, a community center, and I think that it should be the Dick DeWeese Community and Senior Center. I know there was some controversy or some talk about grants and that kind of thing, but I think if you've got the word senior in there, it makes a difference. To me, the way it is now, it sounds like it's for seniors only. And I didn't get on this committee to make just a senior center. I know we promised the seniors a lot of things and a center, and I think we've done that. And I think we've made room for them. I just think that we need to include the community, which includes teenagers, kids, families, and seniors. Thank you. It's a real picky point, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. Any other comments? Seeing no one rise, we'll close the public comment period, bring the item back to the council. Ms. Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Ms. Brady just made a very good point. It is a community center and a senior center, and the way it reads right now, it just seems to be senior community center. So I would like to support her name, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dick DeWeese Community and Senior Center. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rouget.
Yeah, I wanted to, I agree with Ms. Brady and Councilmember Martner to turn those two words around. And I wanted to talk to Mr. Schuyler also because I was approached by Dick's wife, Jane, and she asked that it be called Dick DeWeese, and I think that is what we should do. You know, down the road 100 years, I think people will still understand why we did that. I think one of the other things to notice that was sort of glossed over by Mr. Luther, but the actual bid and cost is $742,000 less than what our architect had said it was going to be. So, you know, that's quite a savings in there, and I think that's something to be recognized while we're talking about this.
Mr. Lingle.
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Ms. Luther. Could you come up? Just for clarification, the construction management portion, we're hiring this firm to oversee the construction from the time it started till completion.
Correct.
The time frame and the expenditure of funds?
Well, they would prepare progress payments, but they would be approved by the city, by staff.
Okay.
They would monitor construction and report to staff.
And the dates again you gave me for approximate starting and completion?
I believe I said September 27th and ending July 24th.
July 24 of 2011. Okay.
It's a 300 calendar day construction period.
Who is going to be held accountable to make sure that we stay on this time frame? Is it our city staff, or is it the construction firm, or the construction management company?
City staff is ultimately responsible for the contracts. We manage the contracts, but I mean, there are eyes and ears on the site day to day, and we'll be checking with them weekly.
Okay, and I think you said in here you're going to be reporting back to us on a regular basis.
Yes, I can report back monthly, bi-monthly, however the council would like.
Okay. I'd like to see actually a monthly report on this. So it's the city staff that will be holding the timeline and the budget. strings?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then, I know this is probably not yours, but I bring it up all the time. I think the amount for change orders always seems to be high for any contracts that this city signs. Now, this, I have to say, is better than things I've seen in the past. This is about a 16% allowable for change orders. I've seen as high as 20 and I think 25% with the city. With your history, do you think why did you come up with 16%, I guess is what I'm asking? Is there a formula that you use?
Well, I believe we went back to the approved budget, well, the anticipated budget, and had a combined contingency which included CM and construction all together. We tried to stay within that. It fell roughly close to 15%, so we just rounded it off to the 16. They're typically somewhere between 10 and 20.
Okay, because the construction contract and the CM contract is actually 24%, 16%, and then 6%. There's an additional $34,000 for the construction management, so it's still a significant amount of money for change orders.
Yes.
Okay, and all these change orders will be approved by?
They would be approved by the city engineer as number 3 on the.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
What the wishes?
I have.
Sorry.
Yes. In fact, I was going to ask for a monthly report, also a monthly update from staff on where, as we go along in this process, what's going on today, and a monthly one would be just fine. I agree with Councilmember Lingle on that.
Mr. Lingle?
I'd like to move that we accept staff recommendations. I'd like to incorporate in it the change of the name to include the Dick DeWeese Community and Senior Center. I believe that was the only change I was going to. Oh, and I'm sorry, and to include the monthly reports. With that, in addition, then with that, I'll accept the staff recommendations.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second before us. Let's vote. And that passes, and that's the last major action before groundbreaking. I have a couple of comments. First of all, it's going to be a beautiful facility. It's going to be double the size of the one that we gave up. It's going to have a lot of features in it that we didn't have over there to have configured for 2 or 3 events at the same time. The groundbreaking ceremony is tentatively scheduled for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sorry, it's the day. It's the 24th of August. I'm sorry, it's the 24th of September, and that is a Friday. Let me see. That is a Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, the 24th of September. And I think we'll have a big ceremony out there that day. The second comment I have is I have had discussions recently with the 2 other owners of property down there at that shopping center. I don't know whether they're here tonight. They were going to come tonight. They're very anxious for this contract to get underway. They have told me that as a result of our building the community center on that site, I'm not going to say DeWeese community / of the center on that site, they are planning to undertake a major upgrade of the entire shopping center. They are planning to match our architecture with all new frontage and facades on the buildings, upgrade the buildings, the rest of the center. They intend to upgrade the parking lot to match the landscaping and the lighting and things that we were putting in for our end of the parking lot. A major effort to make that facility something that whole neighborhood at that west end of town can be proud of. And they're doing it, and they want to do it as quickly as possible because they believe that getting that done will assist them in finding another major tenant for the Bonds store when the Bonds lease is up next year and Bonds pulls out. So they would like to work with our staff as much as possible and have access to the drawings, and I hope staff will be able to work with them and get the information to them so that they can have their architects start developing the work for the rest of the center. Next item on the agenda.
I have a comment that I would like to make.
Regarding these owners, do we have any of this in writing when they come and talk to the city staff? Just, I mean, it's not just talking.
Well, I don't have anything in writing from them, but they've asked. There are CC&Rs on the property that require them to approve our plans. So they've looked at them. They're well aware. They've worked with us as to what's going on in there. If you want something, type it up, and I'll ask them to sign it. I don't know what. If they're going to put some money into development,
absolutely. I just want the commitment that that they are actually committing to improve the whole area as opposed to just talk. But,
I'll talk to them and see. The commitment, I think, is when they submit the plans and they start the development in the community. But we'll see if we can't get something. No reason to believe they're not going to do it. I don't understand. Okay, excuse me. Next item on the agenda. Mr. Wilkie.
Good evening. I'm Brad Wilkie, Management Services Director. The item that I am presenting tonight is a revision to the A13 electric schedule. This was mentioned earlier in the economic development update. The Utilities Department and the Finance Department have been working to modify the eligibility rules for the A13 economic development incentive rate. These rates were put into place in 1996 as a response to the electric deregulation rules, and commonly referred to as AB 1890. That rate is 5% lower than what the existing A12 normal large commercial customer rates are, and that's the incentive that's being provided. One of the criteria that we are proposing to change is to reduce the number of new jobs that need to be created to be eligible from 10 currently in effect to 5. And the other item that we're changing is to expand the eligibility area from what is basically the industrial areas of town, which there are 3 general areas, to also include the low and moderate census tracts of that CDBG uses, and also the redevelopment agency's boundaries, just to make it a little bit more available to businesses that are either coming into town or that are expanding that are in those areas to meet those eligibility limits. That pretty much concludes my report, and the recommendation is to approve the change to the A13 schedule by the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkie. Ms. Martner?
I have a couple of questions regarding this item. You're talking about a reduction of 5% from the regular rate.
Correct.
And it will stay the same. What this is doing basically is expanding the scope.
Yeah, it's trying to make
of who can qualify for this. And you've gone from 10 FTEs to 5 FTEs. And I guess what I'd like to know, how how much of an effect do we have on that? I mean, should we go, why 5 versus 3? Okay, I want a justification of why, where are we drawing the line of who qualifies,
Right.
how many employees do you have to have?
I wasn't here when the original A13 schedule was developed. That was done in 1996. So I can only kind of guess at what their expectation was. But I believe it was to do two things: to increase the load for the electric utility, to spread our fixed costs over more kilowatt hours. And the other one was to incentivize people to bring in new jobs to the town. 10 was picked at that point in time. I don't know why that number was picked. I looked at the current electric rates, and at at about 111, 112,000 kilowatt hours a month, that reduction equates to about $32,000 per person for if you were doing it for 5 people. So it kind of equates to roughly that kind of income. And that was just one way of taking a look at it, is 5 new people being added to the payrolls at that level of kilowatt hour usage seems to make some sense. But to answer your question, that number was just reduced from 10 just to see if it would help make more people eligible.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you know, there are many small businesses here that don't have 10 employees. They have less than that.
Right. And this is not really for small businesses, because the eligibility limit for kilowatt hours is 25,000 a month. So that's a fairly high standard for a little operation. It's kind of meant for industrial development, manufacturing, that kind of stuff. So.
And what was the logic to extend it to the RDA limits?
Well, originally it was only limited to the area around the airport that was zoned business. Yeah, the business park. And although that's still a priority to get people moving in there, there are other industrial areas in town that were not covered. And both of them are within these two areas, the RDA area and the low and moderate census tract area. So we're trying to encourage people, if they don't quite fit in the business park area, they can go into these other two.
Now, I understand that we have had one business that has utilized this intensive, right?
More than one, yeah.
Do you have any idea of how many?
Well, 2.
2.
Right now
okay.
it's 2.
Not 1, but 2.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we accept staff recommendations. Oh, we didn't. No. I still move that.
We'll open public comment. Yeah, we'll open this for public comment. If there's anyone that would like to give the comments, their comments to the City Council before we take a vote on this.
Martin Vanino, City of Lompoc. I just have a question for Mr. Wilkie. What is the current rate per kilowatt hour for commercial?
I think we'll move on. Mr. Wilkie, will you try to contact him individually and answer his question? Is there anyone else that would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Mr. Lingle, do you have a motion?
I guess so. I'd like to move to accept staff recommendations.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Let's cast our vote. That Durham's lazy tonight. And that passes unanimously with 1 abstention or absence. The next item on the agenda is another construction contract. Mike Luther.
Council?
Are we as happy to award this one as we were the last one?
You should be very happy. This is for the award of the Allen Hancock Bicycle Path. In 1996, after the construction of the Allen Hancock campus, the bike path was conceived. After almost 10 years of negotiations with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, a permanent easement was obtained by the city. In 2002, the construction of the existing pedestrian bridge on the west side of the San Ynez Bridge was complete. That was the first step of completing a path up to the college. This project will construct approximately 1 mile of lighted Class 1 bike path from just north of the Highway 1 San Ynez River Bridge to the south end of Allen Hancock campus and adjacent to Ken Adam Park. On July 29th, 10 bids were received and publicly read by the city clerk's office. Bids received ranged from a low of $1,026,646 to a high of $1,585,280.25. All were well below the engineer's estimate of $1.7 to $1.8 million. The project is primarily funded through federal and state funding programs, including the Regional Surface Transportation Program, the State Transportation Improvement Program, Transportation Enhancement, and the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. The project is fully funded and will not require the allocation of city general funds. At this time, I'm available for any questions you might have.
Mr. J.
I thought, it says it's going to be fenced, right? One side.
It will have a fence beginning at the Ken Adam Park. There's an existing fence up there. So from that fence line along the west edge of the bike path down to Highway 1, we'll have an 8-foot fence.
Because I think we talked about this at one point, that there's critters up there, big ones, and it's especially running around Ken Adam Park. Don't laugh. There's a mountain lion up there. So I was concerned that the safety of the bikers,
It's open to the east.
Yeah.
So the entire area to the east is open. The fence is a requirement of the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Yeah, on their side.
On their side, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We're helping them. We're keeping the mountain lions out of the prisoners. Mike, let me ask a question. Was this just a bottom line bid, or was there a cost breakdown? Was there other information in the information that was submitted by each bidder?
This is not a lump sum bid. This is bid items. I don't remember the exact number of bid items on this particular bid, but it is broken down by items.
And I was in this business for 42 years. When I saw bids, if they were in a tight shot group, close to the government estimate before it went out, I was as happy as could be. Because when I see bids range from $1 million to $1.5 million, that's a 50% increase, I have to wonder if they all were bidding against the same specs, or did they interpret them in different ways, especially when it's much lower than the architect's estimate. Do we have a system where we verify that they knew what they were bidding and that they are a responsible bidder, and that what do we know about this company and his history?
V. Lopez has done several projects for the city in the past. They've completed them on time and in budget. Okay. This particular bid, the items that stood out from the engineer's estimate versus the bids were retaining wall and lighting. Those items came in significantly lower than what we estimated. The three low bids are relatively close together. They're not that far apart. But the low bidder was low on lighting versus the other bids.
Oh, it's just, yeah. You can't expect everything to be perfect and lined up every time, but when I see a shot group that's kind of wide like that, instead of tight, I wonder if they all interpreted the specs the same way. Because you've got some companies that I know well that are up in the 1.4 price range. But if they're responsible, it's a bonded project, is it not?
Yes.
And so if they do not, if they should lose money and go belly up, the bonding company has to take it over and finish it, the job, right?
Yeah, if we went that way.
I have no further questions. I'll open up to public comment at this time. If there's anybody from the audience that would like to speak to us. Seeing no one rise, we'll close public comment period. What are the wishes of the council on the item before us?
I'd like to move to accept the staff report.
I'll second it.
Second. Let's get our vote. You're going to have any kind of a groundbreaking ceremony, cutting a ribbon or digging a shovel into the ground or anything associated with this? Some bikers riding?
There's none planned. But
Oh, okay. Item number 13 on the agenda is award of another contract, dehumidification equipment purchases for the Aquatic Center. Kevin.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I couldn't make Mike do all the work tonight, so I figured I'd fill in actually for Craig Deerling, who wrote the staff report. Could not be here tonight. Tonight's staff report is for project number 07P1B, the Lompoc Aquatic Center Dehumidification Project, or I guess the first phase of that project. As council is aware, the existing aquatic center does not have a humidity control system. Therefore, during cold months, heated water evaporates inside the enclosure, condenses on the cold metal surfaces, and then drips down inside the facility, resulting in corrosion and premature deterioration. Currently, the only way to address the humidity problem is to open the operable roof, therefore making it cold for the bathers inside the facility. So that isn't done very often and exacerbates the problem. Parks and Rec asked engineering to address the problem, and in 2008, engineering presented an analysis to council and proposed awarding a contract to design a solution, which would be to dehumidify the air and to heat the air at the same time. The action requested tonight is to award a contract to purchase the main equipment for this solution. It takes 3 to 4 months to manufacture what in essence is a large air conditioning unit, or very similar to an air conditioning unit. And our idea is to go ahead and award the equipment purchase and be ready to start construction when the equipment is delivered in about 3 or 4 months and advance the project. Therefore, staff recommends adopting the plans and specs, award the dehumidification equipment contract in the amount of $473,822.66 to Desert Air Corporation, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order, authorize change orders to be approved by the city engineer not to exceed $60,000, and then 2 additional recommendations for you acting as the redevelopment agency board. Authorize the expenditure of up to $533,822.33 of the $1.8 million of the agency received for recently issued tax allocation bonds, and authorize the staff to transfer up to $533,822 from the appropriate agency budget account to the appropriate city budget account when and as needed. And that concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions at this time? Mr. Lingle. We can. Is there something the public would like clarification on before they speak?
Sure. Well, something I just need clarification on. Again, I'm going to ask the same questions. You said the start date is approximately 3 to 4 months?
Yes, we are still in plan check with the building division, but barring any unforeseen comments or redesigns, we should be ready to go in 3 to 4 months.
Okay. And approximately how long will it take to complete the project?
The overall construction project. I don't have that information in front of me. I believe it was about a 6-month project, but I don't have it in front of me. Sorry.
Okay. And then who will be responsible for the oversight to make sure that we stay on time and on budget?
The engineering division will be managing that construction project
Okay.
also.
And you'll be willing to report back to us on a regular basis?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
We'll ask for public comment at this time. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to give their comments or opinions to the city regarding this item? Seeing no one rise, we'll bring it back to council. What are the wishes of the council on the item? Mr. Lingle.
I'll move that we accept staff recommendations with the addition that I'll be asking that they report back to us on a monthly basis. Actually starting, you say 3 to 4 months, so probably starting in, yeah, when can you?
Yeah, if I can suggest, we will be coming back to you for the award of the construction project, so perhaps you can give direction at that time for us to start the monthly reporting, if it's the council direction.
Okay, thank you. So my recommendation is to accept, or my motion is to accept staff recommendations at this point.
We have a motion before us.
I second.
Partner, second. Let's vote. No more comments. And that one is approved. We have, at this time, do we have any written communications? Seeing none, we have another 2-minute period for oral communications. If there's anyone that would like to speak to us on any item relevant to city business.
Mayor and Council, Will Schuyler, Lompoc. I would like to thank the current council for doing the last 2 items there, the bike path and the humidifier. Both of those were started when I had the pleasure of serving up on the podium with you, and glad to see that those projects were done. It was kind of hard to take the humidifier out when we were building the pool, because it certainly had been the time to do it, but sometimes you have to move money from A to B to get the job done, and really just real happy, and I'm sure that it'll be a definite asset to the pool. And bike path, again, we've had, as far as I know, no really serious accident between walkers, bikers, and joggers going to the college, but you know, it's a lot of traffic up there, and a lot of them still go alongside the road there and get that bike path in and get that finished where there's be protected. I think it's a good. Sorry to hear about the fence, but there is a detention facility in the area, so it probably makes sense. Thank you.
Seeing no one else rise, we'll close public comment period. We'll bring you back to the council for any final comments. Anything that I have one comment. The comment was made earlier that the general plan was coming to us on the 2nd meeting in September. It is really scheduled for the 1st meeting in September, the 7th of September. So if you're interested in the general plan for the city of Lompoc, right now it's scheduled for the 7th of September here in these chambers. We did lose a city member today, and city employee died because of cancer. Mr. Adams, I forget his first name, Laurel. Do you remember?
His first name is Doug.
Judd?
Doug.
Doug Adams, who worked at the landfill. And our sympathies whenever we lose. I'm sorry that I forgot his first name, because he deserved more than that. But I did want to mention that we lost someone in our own family today. Mr. Lingle, final comments?
Well, I'd like to make a request that we consider agendizing at least a discussion on the possibility of flying the Honor and Remember flag. I'd like to see us discuss it at a future council meeting, the possibility of flying that flag. The other thing is I'd like to see if we could have this resolution presented, a city resolution concerning the Honor and Remember flag at the September 11th dinner at the Elks Club. So I'd like that to be considered as well. So.
Mr. Boucher.
Yeah, I agree with you, Council Member. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, on September 3rd, the police are having their annual car show, and that is really a lot of fun. And they get cars, I don't know how many, but it's really fun. Also, on September 2nd, the night before, they have a cruise night. And we are working with the Chamber of Commerce also and having our Old Town Market that night. We're asking vendors and nonprofit organizations can come down to the Old Town Market in the same place, same time, and we'll have some music and some equipment from the fire and police, and the cruise night will be going on. And then on the next day, then they'll have the car show. I forgot to mention that earlier. So if you're interested in having a free booth space, call the Chamber of Commerce about that. Thank you.
Seeing no more lights lit, no more items on the agenda, I'm sure we don't want to stay here any longer, so the meeting is adjourned. See you next